you all see the email I sent like a half hour ago? It's more just prior to we go in our closed session. Just a quick little refresh on some things. Welcome, everybody. You're welcome to keep chattering until we start the meeting. We're just waiting for one more council member who we believe is just...
Jake's just walked in.
He just walking in. Okay, sounds great. Cole's going to be probably 10 minutes, about 10 minutes late, yeah. Bumper music, like in the background, some patriotic music or something, or I don't know.
Walk-up music.
Yeah. Get everyone in a good mode. Here we go.
That's kind of a baseball.
Yes, get us all pumped. Hello.
I am
good to
so
see you.
sorry I didn't call you back today. It is,
Non-stop, I'm sure.
I am gone tomorrow and the rest of the week. It's
Oh,
like,
so you gotta get everything finished.
madness.
Absolutely, I know how that is. It's so stressful to go.
Honestly, it's like, it's not worth it anymore.
Are we, YouTube, everything's, recording's going? Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. We'd like to welcome everyone. On behalf of the council here, we have one more council member en route who will be here shortly. I'd like to welcome you all. I'm Mayor Carolyn Lundberg. And this is a special meeting. In the summertime, things get a little hectic. Business could be a little lighter, but we have some things that we're going to go over quickly tonight. So welcome to this meeting here at 5:15 on Tuesday, July 15th, 2025, here in our Lindon City Center Council chambers. So to begin with the meeting, normally we have a Pledge of Allegiance, but since tonight is sort of a special session, in addition, we're going to forego the typical presentations and announcements and go straight to our order of business, and that would be first our call to order. And I'll just start here on my left.
Steve Stewart, present.
Lincoln Jacobs, present.
Jake Hoyt, present.
Carolyn Lundberg, present.
And Broderick, present.
All right, and as I mentioned, we'll make a note with the recorder once Councilmember Hooley is able to make it. So the reason we're calling this meeting tonight is we have a presentation and a discussion, so no action will be taken tonight. This is just a presentation and then discussion. Of a proposal from representatives from Castlewood Development. So with that said, staff, do you have something that you want to introduce first?
Just give a really quick overview of kind of where we're at, and then let the applicants take off there. I don't think my mic is working. That's better. So Lindon City has received an application for a development agreement from Castlewood Development, and they are looking at entering into a development agreement with the Lindon City, and they are currently requesting approval of a master plan development that's along our 700 North corridor. To give a little bit of information on this, and they can highlight this as well when they come up. As part of this proposal, they are looking at about 87,000 square feet of commercial space and proposing currently 375 units for, on the current plan, townhomes and apartments. They may be looking to change that to different types of units. Just a little bit of background. Lindon City purchased this property just to the south of this corridor in late 2023, and with the intent to work with the property owners, the Anderson family, and try to coordinate a larger development, retail development on this property. We had a big box retailer, Costco, that was interested in this site and had worked with the city over a number of months, and they've determined that they're not going to utilize and build at this site. So that was disappointing for the city, but that's a recent development as part of this. And so as with that change where Costco has chosen not to move forward with development of this site, we've had some subsequent meetings with Castlewood Development, talking about how that may or may not change the proposed master plan in this area. So as you're looking at this next site plan that I'll show, it shows a big box where we thought a big retailer was going to locate, and that is something that could happen in the future but is not currently in the works. So is that fair to say, everybody? So this is the proposed development that Castlewood will have an opportunity to present here again. Castlewood Development did come in for a similar type of meeting in February and presented this plan, and we had a little bit of public comment. This was intended tonight to just be a presentation and discussion item with the city council and the developer. We know there's some public here that may have interest in this application. As an FYI, if this project continues to move forward, there's some other necessary steps that the city would have to take that would include a planning commission meeting. There would be a public hearing at the planning commission to move forward with what the developer is requesting. It would require that public hearing. At that level, they would be looking at a zone change, an ordinance amendment, and approval of a draft development agreement. Then the planning commission would make a recommendation to the city council, and so there would be another public meeting for this same item with the city council. If there's any further discussions or negotiations between the city and the property owners on additional property purchase for something that could be a future retailer on this site in the middle there, that takes time as well. We would have to hold some hearings where we would discuss a bond for borrowing money to actually purchase property. So there's some additional hearings that are required as part of that process. So with that, I think since Costco has left this location, that is really what triggered this new meeting, this new discussion, so the city council has an opportunity to talk with the developer. And the developers that requested in a meeting last week, we had with them an opportunity to get in front of the entire city council. A few of you, they've only met or discussed this just that one time in February, and so this is an opportunity for them to answer any questions that you might have. So,
And it's, just so I can confirm, as far as public comment, there'll be, as you just explained very well, several meetings before this would be fully approved where the public could make comment. And as far as public comment today, that's at the decision.
that's up to you guys if you
At the
choose to
discretion
take
of the
that.
mayor. Okay.
Yeah, so any other questions for me?
All right, very good. We'd like to invite the applicant forward, Castlewood Development. Haley, if you want to go ahead, if you could sign in there, and if you want to introduce yourselves. We have this recorded, and it also is live streaming.
Terrific. Haley's signing in for me too, if that's okay. Listen, we're happy to be here. My name is Dwayne Rasmussen with Castlewood Development. This is my partner, Haley Pratt, also with Castlewood Development. We've had the opportunity of meeting with several of you on the council from time to time over the last few months in order to try and make this thing happen. We all got thrown a curveball a month or so ago when Costco decided to, we couldn't talk about Costco in the last meeting. Today, I guess we can talk about them because they've left. We wanted to make this thing happen. We're still here in a very collaborative fashion to try and see if we can accommodate your goals as well as our goals. To put the residents' mind partially at ease, We're not proposing a huge wholesale change in the site plan that we showed last fall or that we attached to our development agreement. There are no more units than we proposed then. There might be some different configurations which allow for a little bit more room around the plaza in the future, which the mayor and Lincoln and your planning staff was a little concerned about. So the townhome development may go away, but there won't be any additional units in terms of what's there, what was shown in terms of a total number of apartment units.
Additionally, the buildings will not be any closer to the existing single-family to the south. Any building will be pushed, multifamily building will be pushed as far north as we can while still staying south of that proposed road. So we are trying to,
If you need it.
so just keeping some of the multifamily as far away from the residential. We know we have to be.
So those, where Haley just had the pointer was the townhomes. And that stood out a little bit as a different kind of neighborhood, and we thought we could get a little bit more continuity by moving the apartments a little bit further away from the town center, creating a little bit more room there, but not adding any more units, nor moving them any closer to the southern property line boundary with our neighbors. All the retail, et cetera, remains exactly the same. I think Adam did a great job of defining where we are right now. I have to again compliment the city council for buying that land off of 700 North, because that's what allows an anchor to come. When we first got to town, it was apparent to us that we didn't have the depth to attract even a Smith's Marketplace or a Lowe's department store or a Winco in order to park it properly. And to your credit, you went out and bought that land in hopes that we could attract somebody, and the first one in the door was Costco, first one out of the door was Costco. I think to say we are collaboratively working together to see if there are other anchors, and I believe that there are, who will come to that party and make this thing happen from a sales tax and an anchor sort of standpoint. From Castlewood development standpoint, there's been nothing that's changed on this property other than the disappearance of Costco. We would still like to go forward with that plan. We would still be willing to sell that front 10 acres to the city at a pass-through cost in terms of what we're acquiring it for. We have a bulk buy on it. We think it's a good buy for the city. You may feel differently, and if you do, we can part friends. But I think it would protect the interest of the city in terms of what you own in the rear. We're here to answer any questions you might have, unless I've missed anything, Haley.
The one thing that I know that we heard in the last meeting and we continually hear is that the parking, the 1.8 is not acceptable. And we've heard that loud and clear, and we intend on parking at the 2 stalls per unit. We actually are going to be doing a parking study, and that will prove that we're hitting the 2 and that we're also parking in compliance with the city's requirements. So I just wanted to add that.
One other thing along those lines is people talk about apartment developers charging for parking. We sort of do and we sort of don't. When someone comes to lease a unit, it has a stall assigned to it. It's not an addition to the rent. That stall is assigned to that unit, and it's figured in the rent. So it's not like we're charging them and chasing them away. They know when they rent that apartment unit, they have that stall and another one for other members of their family. So that's called bundling, and we bundle it with the apartment unit when we rent it. So I know that's a concern to the neighbors, and I appreciate Haley bringing that up, but we're here to answer any questions you might have. We had a meeting with the mayor and a couple of council members a few weeks ago, and we thought we were all on the same page in terms of where we were headed. Circumstances changed, nobody's fault. We're still willing to honor that conversation that we had downstairs in that room. I'm open for questions.
Well, I'm glad you started with the parking.
yeah.
Because when you said no substantial changes, that's a good substantial
Good change, yes, thank you very much.
At least going in the right
Yeah, thank you.
direction, because yes, that's a concern for everybody.
Sure.
So we appreciate you moving that to where at least the city standard is in that regard, so.
And out of curiosity, I'd just like to know what you'd think about, 1.8 versus 2 doesn't sound like a ton, but it's space. Where would that come from, just in your mind? I know you probably haven't done any plans on it, but just.
Well, we were headed down that road when we all got thrown the curveball. And so we've started a plan, but we haven't finished it. Obviously, you would need to see and approve that plan and make sure that it you know, it complies with your ordinance, but we know that we have to do that. So if you decide we still want to go down that road, you would see a new plan, not substantially different from what's here, other than to meet those objectives.
Okay.
When we were dating Costco, they had some pretty specific limitations on a grocer that could go in there. Given that they're no longer at the dance, do you see that changing much in your mind as far as getting commercial in, and what kind of commercial?
I think that's a real good question, Lincoln, and I think it helps our side of the equation a lot, but I also think that the obvious target that we ought to have collectively is another grocery store to fill that space. Whether it's a Smith's Marketplace, I know they're remodeling where they are now, whether it's Winco, whether it's another grocer that might be willing to come to the market. That opens up our, you know, with Trader Joe's or whoever it is. But two things I think that the city's considering. One is volume and sales tax that comes off of a user like that. And two is the kind of traffic they generate to lease against. And honestly, a more traditional grocery store like those I just mentioned is a lot easier to lease against and creates a lot more synergy than Costco did, because people come, buy, take it home, put it in their freezer, and we don't see them again for a week or so.
But they were also limiting the number of square feet for that facility, and
Yes.
that's,
So that-
we're much more open in that respect
Absolutely,
at this point for
absolutely.
whoever wants to come to the dance.
I know I haven't been in a lot of those other meetings other than the one that we had here that was a public
Sure.
meeting. So I know I've probably missed out on some of the conversations, but I've always been interested in what type of retail would be coming in and what ideas you have. And I feel, and this is me personally, because I'm outside, I guess, I feel like that's not a lot of control that we have. You know, once this is approved, then it's on you to attract those businesses. Is there any way to know what those businesses could be, who you've talked to?
I wish I could answer that with a bunch of baloney, but I can't. Those tenants out there are really waiting for the anchor to come to the dance. Now, we have a lot that are interested without it, depending on whatever else happens. There are a lot of restaurants, primarily fast food restaurants. But we've been engaged in some sit-down restaurants, 2 or 3 whom I can't mention for competitive reasons, that are interested in that. Based on the kind of buildings that we're going to be leasing, we're incented to lease them to the best tenants that we can find. So I think that's the best answer I can give you without trying to pull wool over your eyes. I would say one other thing before Haley steps in here, and that is...
She's good.
No, she was headed that way. And that is that as far as we're concerned, the plaza that we presented when we were here before is still part of this deal. And we want to build an outstanding gathering place and, a place that Lindon can call city center, if you will.
I do want to add on the land use perspective. So especially, we're paying a lot of attention to the users that we are really more headhunting for the retail spaces around the town center. We understand that the character of those retailers and restaurants and food users, those are going to have to really activate the space. And we actually have included that language in a draft development agreement. So all the uses, the permitted uses within those buildings around the town center square, those are activating uses. They won't be a permitted use if they don't help attract that energy that you're hoping to attract in the town center. So there is some control in that sense of users. But as Dwayne said, we're still working through which tenants will come for the bulk of the site. But just know that there are controls in there that will help target the uses that you're hoping for.
Okay. And speaking of the town center there and with those buildings, the residential buildings around it, it feels to me, and this is just me personally, that the town center is kind of almost an extension of the entire residential complex. You've got a clubhouse, you've got these things that are all kind of wrapped around it. And I'm not sure, and where it's set so deeply into the space, it feels more about the residential as the gathering place for them rather than for the city. I'm just...
Your comments mirror the mayor's and a few of the council members that we had at the meeting before, and that was one of the changes that we were making that I referred to earlier, to get a little bit more distance there and make sure that it's community space and that they know that.
And one of the things too, this is a first draft. So even when we had the international retailer coming with LOIs
You
and
can say it,
everything
Mayor.
submitted, we had already talked about these buildings are going to move, right? This is first draft. This is all we have. You said you have a second draft based on feedback we gave. You don't have it tonight to present. So,
Okay.
yeah, those
But-
are all things that,
But the
this is
pieces
not
that
set
could
in
move
stone.
aren't moving in terms of the number of square feet of retail and the number of apartment units.
Right, but where they go on the acreage.
Correct.
So, one of the things that, just for those that are watching and maybe you're new to this whole concept, we have a piece of 40 acres on our corridor on the south side. And we could either just let it develop piecemeal by chance with whatever comes, it's allowed in the commercial code, tall offices, whatever random commercial uses that are already allowed. But one of the things that is kind of a goal is if many communities decide, you know what, we want to bring the best and highest uses, and we want to be in the driver's seat. And so creating a vision for this area and protecting it so we don't just get warehouses or, run-of-the-mill, low-end commercial. We really want to create a special place that Lindon can say, this is our downtown. We don't have an identifiable downtown that people can come and there's those cool restaurants and I can hang out in the plaza and listen to a concert with the stage and a big open play area and have events and 5K runs and farmers markets and then come and have the best restaurants, not just the fast casual, but the really nice sit-down restaurants and have some boutique retailers. So what we're looking at here is a lot of times for these things to happen, you have to do some proactive things. You can either let it happen to you and you get what you get, or you take a proactive approach. In this instance, we have a potential partner who's come to the table who've said, look, we'll look at this, we'll take on the risk of this whole 40 acres or 30 of it in this, depending how we slice and dice it, and we'll partner with you to control the users that come, to bring the best and highest uses, to create that community gathering place, of an identifiable downtown. A cute little Main Street promenade is on here, things like that. Now, how things are laying out was their first stab at it. We had a lot of feedback. This wouldn't be the final end result. When you go into a development agreement, which is what they would like to enter in, you hammer out a lot of details over a number of months. So we had a lot of feedback on this, that things would not stay in that exact iteration or layout. But what we're really also trying to set up the city for, besides a social hub and a place that we can enjoy, it also creates an economic, we're trying to create an economically stimulated area that for the long term sets up the city to have a lot of retail sales tax. And to get the retail sales tax and then be able to offset so we keep our property taxes low. We are so blessed based on councils before us and mayors before us and the current folks that I've had the opportunity to serve with, over the past 10 years. We try to be fiscally responsible. You may have noticed you have not had a property tax. We're now second lowest or potentially the lowest in the entire county. Every other city has raised property taxes. So we are in a very blessed state because we try to run fiscally responsible budgets while still taking care of providing the highest amenities. We're a small town, but we have big town amenities. We have amazing parks and trails, and hopefully you're noticing, in fact, we've been doing so much road work and touching the roads. People are getting mad how much road construction's going on. So we're trying to take care of our infrastructure. There's some issues here that affect, it goes deeper with, infrastructure on transportation, as well as our water lines and our sewer lines. And so all these things come into play when we have a development partner that we have to work through. But that sets the city up, hopefully, to get something beautiful, better than average, and something that we can be proud of and have an identity around, and then have that economic stimulus. So the goal would still be, we're going to try to get a really great big anchor. You want the whale to kind of bring and attract. We do have, when you ask, well, who's going to go it? we're working together. We're, talking. We've had some other interested anchors already. Now that Costco stepped away and Costco said they're on pause, they could revisit in a year, but we are trying to move forward regardless. So keeping property taxes low and providing that amazing high quality of life. This is kind of our one shot. We don't have any more land left to create this kind of a placemaking, opportunity. And so with that, then there's going to be some trade-offs. And the state has also made some new laws. Your legislators fairly recently made some laws in order to get the prime commercial that creates that amazing sales tax money for the city. Well, now those retailers, they know if they come to a city, we have to do agreements with them. We have to incentivize them. They know that they're the belle of the ball and they can go get incentives wherever they land. We now have state law requiring if we incentivize the big anchor, we are required. We do not have a choice. There's an algorithm or a calculation of how many housing doors we are required by state law now to provide or build within a quarter mile of that retailer that is incentivized. So that's one of the things that's at play. We would have to meet when we had Costco, that was a number, and then depending on who comes forward, we would revisit that again. The governor and the legislature have made it extremely clear they are not done in trying to force cities to do more housing. And so we're continually seeing every legislative session more and more chipping away at local authority, local control. And so this is an opportunity again for us to wrap our arms around it and partner and hopefully create housing that we would like to the best that we can. It's kind of a push and a pull. It's a trade-off. They bring retailers. We have to provide this kind of mixed use opportunity. There's certain things that we have to balance, I guess is the best way I'm trying to explain. So go
May
ahead,
I just
Dwayne.
follow up on that, Mayor, because I think you made some really good points. First of all, we fully embrace that vision, and that's the reason for the town center. But part of the reason for the multifamily in this, and we've had this discussion in the past, is that it energizes that space. It's people that can walk there and walk to the plaza and walk to the restaurants and shop in the retail. So not only do those people bring incomes that are substantial, they spend it in your community, very, very close, and it helps the retailers do better. So I know these folks out here, our friends and our neighbors, live in an area that's had a lot of apartments and a lot of growth recently. But we all benefit off of that growth in terms of the way people spend money and what they do within the community. And we could, if we really were wanted to, I guess, and we can't reach an agreement with the city, we could buy this land and develop it as a commercial project, sans the, and it's not a threat, it's just that there's nothing there to support it. The plaza, et cetera, and you would get your run-of-the-mill. So we want to be patient, we want to be collaborative with you, and we'd like to see this vision come to bear.
And just a few things that I wanted to add is this isn't the end of the story. We still plan on putting together elevations that you're gonna have to review and approve. And the detailed plaza design, that's coming forward too. So you'll see the water feature that we're anticipating and other aspects of that space. And we're open to how fluid that design will be and what the feedback is from the council. We've seen the precedent images and the master plans, and we understand the vision, and we think we can do it. And that's what we'd like to do. So.
Council, any further questions?
I've got a couple that I'm trying to review the draft agreement, the development agreement, so this can go to either one. Did we make the residential in any way post-performance on the commercial, Adam? I know we had kind of early conversations of that.
I think that's even in there yet.
There's-
So walk us through your timeline maybe. I think that, when Ivory came in, and I think a lot of the folks in the room here are part of that development, the thought process was, we will bring the doors and commercial will come. We had a Smith's representative at that time that was ready to go. And I think that some of the council's concern is we'll allow the residential and the commercial will never come. And so help us with your timeline and help us get comfortable with
So
that.
there is actually a section in the development agreement, and I don't remember the details of it. I can pull it up after. But there is a phasing of that, there is one component of the multifamily that can move forward, but before the second can move forward, there is a commercial benchmark that we do have to hit. And I don't remember what those are, but I can pull it up. I
Okay,
can-
perfect.
Yeah.
Did we remove the connection to the residential piece, right? There was, on one of the first iterations of the site plan, there was a connection to
The south.
Walkway,
the
pathway.
south.
So, we've added that to help connectivity to the
Okay,
residents.
so we still have that in. That was my question. I think I've seen several iterations, some with, some without. You're not super passionate about
In the
it.
neighborhood, that could go
I
either
think so
way.
as well.
That's not our
And
demand.
I
Okay.
don't know if there's a possibility of even making it a gate code where only the residents have access. We put that in there to try and help people access the town center plaza. We thought that that was an amenity, but if that's not an amenity, it's something. we
Well,
can
I
talk
think
through.
what you're talking about now is the residential there would scoot over to the west is what
Some
we
of it.
chat, yeah, a chunk of it, so.
There will,
okay.
yeah.
My last question, and just give us some warm fuzzies, if we were to acquire the front piece where we've acquired the back piece, there's maybe some concerns that the onus of bringing in that anchor tenant shifts to us significantly. Help me feel good about our participation, the teamwork, the partnership.
Well, I think we remain aligned, whether if you don't commit to buying that relatively soon, then I think we're on our own to develop that property. We've bought that property, it needs to have an economic return come to us. And so it would change the economics of what we're doing in there if we take that risk and buy it. We are working together. I think the mayor can tell you, we have a leasing call every week with our leasing agents, and they give us a report, and it's taken a while for this whole Costco thing to settle down, but now there are opportunities for other potential retailers, and we will knock on every one of those doors, and we will be collaborative. I mean, we have nothing to gain to have that sit there vacant and fallow for the number of years while we build a plaza next door and these retailers. I think the more retail we can get in there, the better our leasing goes and the better our tenants do in terms of economic return.
Agreed. Rising tide raises all ships.
Right.
Sure does.
We have a vested interest in there being a successful anchor on that piece, just because of all of the, I mean, we'd be a primary stakeholder, and your neighbor. So we would be incredibly collaborative, and we brought our brokers to a few meetings, and you've met them, and they're wonderful, and we would continue to engage them to help attract an anchor, no matter who owns it. That's best at the end of the day, to just have that anchor on that site, so.
Maybe just for the public record as well, you said you're willing to sell that 10 acres to the city. What are the conditions that would make that, and now we're not talking price, what are the conditions that you would require before the city would purchase such a thing?
I think we would want our entitlements for this site plan or something very similar to it and a development agreement to sign so that we knew what we could do. If that plan changes substantially, then we would go forward with a regular commercial development without some of those amenities and so forth. Does that help answer that?
Yes, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that, so you're looking for about that number of residential doors.
87,000 square feet of retail and the plaza.
Yes, so, and in that retail, we have that 87,000 square feet, and we have some things broken down into restaurants, retail, grocer, bank. How firm are those numbers, and how do those change? And I know it would be based on maybe what you can get, but retail is a sales tax generator, and some things are not.
Right.
So that sales tax motivates more incentive, and things that don't provide that just doesn't.
We had tentatively agreed, Councilman, to a formula that would allow us to benefit from the sales tax generated by those retailers in order to build the plaza. And so our motivation doesn't change if we want that plaza built the way everybody envisions it. We want to get sales tax generators in there. We've had people come to us who don't generate any sales tax, and we have said, probably not interested in that until it's the very last straw, because right now we've got a lot of, we want to be very, very particular as we enter this development.
So if that's the last straw, does that mean the city plaza part goes away? If you're not
Not at all.
attracting the people?
Not at
that
all.
you
I'm
want?
just saying that if we get the entitlements, we are obligated to build the plaza, which then means we are obligated to put in 87,000 square feet of retail, and it has to generate sales tax in order for us to benefit by that.
And one thing I want to add is that in the draft development agreement, we are including that town center plaza in the first phase of construction. So the first thing, you're going to see that come up once you see groundbreaking occur. So it's not like we're going to push off the town center. That's actually going in the first phase.
Adam, do you have the presentation they did of the concepts of that from a couple months ago
Green, is that
that you guys brought forward?
Renderings, 3D.
Yeah, that,
this?
yes.
And this also, first draft, we would have a lot of feedback on this. This was just a first stab architectural look and
So this is 700 north, 700 north on kind of this side, looking,
promenade entrance with an arch signage. Just some of the amenities that we've talked about, just to review. There'd be beautiful landscaping, awnings on the buildings, lighting at night, fire and water features, marquee signage, a play area of some kind, a stage, pergola maybe, seating, nice furnishings, upscaled landscaping, the Promenade Street, which is like the little mini downtown with the little boutique shops and restaurants. And then it would be a connected village, have some entertainment users in there potentially. And events could be scheduled and hosted there, okay, throughout
I
the
think
year.
you've touched on all of them.
Yep.
All right. So
Some
just review.
combination of those.
Yeah, so those are things that,
That's what she said.
Water and fire.
so just
Earth, wind.
trying to create an attractive destination for
Sure.
people to come eat
And
and
again, we
shop
get
and
that visual.
socialize, go out on a Friday night. Yeah, okay. So just,
Who would own the plaza, the space itself?
Right now, we think it has to be owned by and managed by us with a
The restaurants
public easement
users, yeah.
agreement
Yeah.
across it so that you can hold events there and whatever. But I think it complicates matters in a lot of ways if you own it in terms of the tenants that we can lease to with regard to some potential liquor sales. So it can't be a park,
Which would be associated with a restaurant.
which would be associated with a restaurant.
Yeah.
Not that we're bringing a liquor store in, but a
No.
lot of restaurants like to be able to
It's not
serve that. And if you own it, I think it causes a big problem from that standpoint.
But as part of the agreements, there would be a public access easement across it. So, and we've already discussed agreeing to events and things like that in the plaza space that the city has been
I mean,
looking.
you may want to book some, and we may want to book some, because I think our tenants will benefit by it. And so if you have so many events that you can book a year, and we have so many events that we can book a year, and
Yep.
some that are free, then we can talk about who else might come and do that.
But it would be open to the public.
The city is being asked to apply 526,000, something like that, for amenities for that. Is that correct within the agreement?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember off the top of my head either. The total number for getting this thing done was bigger than that in terms of the participation agreement, but it was all off of just what we generated for you from a tax standpoint. None of the property tax was coming our way. It was simply sales tax of what we generated in our agreement.
You're close on that number.
Am I?
Wayne, if I could, I'll go after you. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. Before I forget, I know one common concern is congestion, traffic, all of that becomes an issue. There's no question that this was all going to be developed at some time, and more traffic was going to come in. Looking at if you just go back to the site plan, just walk me through how traffic is controlled, how we don't impact neighborhoods, that kind of thing.
Well, we haven't done a detailed traffic study yet. You will require that, and we're confident that we can negotiate that. The reason I say that is because when UDOT came in and did the improvements on 700 North, they anticipated this kind of traffic and this kind of volume. You and the residents both may notice that the bases for the signal to go in on 700 North are there now.
It's signalized, yes.
It's not signalized, but the bases are there and it's ready to go. So the other entry points have been approved by UDOT based on their traffic study. And some of them are right in, right out, and some of them are full movement, depending upon what the final traffic study shows us. So this kind of a development, although it will attract users from the outside, it also catches a lot of pass-by traffic that's already on the roads.
Okay.
Additionally, just with 700 North in the nature of that street, it's an arterial and it is what people collect to. And so our residents are, we imagine, going to go to the north. That's the common sense route. And then it will just be helped by the signalized intersection. We also have like the primary road that's going through that helps circulate people to the outside roads that I think will help clean up the circulation within the site. But like Dwayne mentioned, we can perform a traffic impact study and provide that with the city, to the city.
We can't do that traffic impact study until we know who's coming to the party. And
Right.
so we're a little early on that.
Okay.
Do you see an email that I sent you? Since we have a lot of people here in the room who may have questions, we kind of want to provide enough information so that if there's a question, maybe some of the information could answer. We want to be as helpful as possible.
And we want to participate in that.
Yeah.
I think rather than a question at the time, if the neighbors have some comments they want to make,
Yeah.
we'll all make a list and then answer them at the end. I don't want to get into an argumentative situation,
Right.
but I think they have questions that deserve to be answered.
So, one of the things that I presented to the council back in 2023 as some of the reasons why cities get involved proactively with a partnership with a developer or acquire land or try to create a visioning document, and some of the payoffs that some of our community, I just have a couple highlighted in this email I'd love to have maybe our staff pull up. So downtowns, they help generate higher retail sales tax. Obviously, we've talked about the reasons why that benefits the city long-term. We can provide lots of robust infrastructure and pay for that without raising taxes and fees. We can keep our property taxes low. It also creates hopefully a fun place to go, something that we're proud of. Downtowns have a lot of cultural significance. They create a brand, who we are, by providing public assets, culture, recreation, entertainment, civic activities. So it's all part of that fabric, and the connectedness and the quality of life that we're hoping to create is a goal. And they also make it a community a little bit more protected from economic swings as well, by having that diversity of resources and users and multi-use, different kinds of stores, different types of job providers, et cetera. So this economic development, kind of trying to be proactive rather than just letting it happen to us. We're hoping to create a long-term 50 to 100-year higher quality of life here in Lindon. And land is, when it's gone, it's gone. Once it's developed, you don't really get a do-over. Rarely. It takes decades. So we're wanting to be really thoughtful. And so it requires us, in some instances, acting in faith and having a vision and trying to stick with that vision. And there's some trade-offs that you have to do. You don't always get everything 100% how you want it. There's some give and take in different areas. So just to kind of show, I don't know if you can kind of blow these up a little bigger. Cities throughout the state of Utah, throughout the country, do projects that are far larger, bigger scale. Lindon, what we're looking at here is pretty small scale. For us, it feels like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, this is smaller scale. West Valley City here, this was kind of a vision that they had. They had I'm just kind of showing some of the downtowns that they've created. We're not looking to create this urban or dense a downtown by any means. Ours would be more you know, along the lines of our values and what our community wants, not big city look and feel. St. George, they redid their entire historic district. And if you've ever been down there now, you know, there was a partnership. City made some investment, created a partnership with some density housing adjacent to this, and they have some beautiful amenities in there. Meridian, Idaho, they had such a fabulous result from their commercial center with a partner that they had, a development partner, that they then went and decided to redevelop their previous downtown was really run down and in poor shape. So they did a second economic development run at that. So they have 2 locations now that are really beautified. And if anyone visits Meridian, it's a really cool town center. That's just kind of like a night picture of it. Mill Creek right now has been doing a project there. You might, if you visit, they have a skate ribbon that's, you know, ice skating in the winter, and splash pads and all kinds of fun things. And then they've invested a lot as well. They've kind of become the ones that bought all the land, and the city is the developer in their instance. We're not looking at trying to bite off that big of an elephant by any means. Holiday has a really cute little central plaza. You can see here in that lower right-hand corner there, Holiday, this part of town was just, I wouldn't say it was run down, but there was just no reason to go there. There was nothing special. And you can see from that bottom right-hand corner now what they created a master plan in 2006. The city purchased some property. They partnered with a master developer, and then they got this really cute little retail. You can see the outdoor restaurants and a plaza there. In all of these situations, when I called and spoke with these cities, with their mayors, with their economic development directors, with the elected officials, they said, it's not just what happened in this little spot, it actually sparked more and better investment and from other entities coming around it. So we have the entire north end of the corridor. You know, there's other areas going up towards Walmart. There's a lot of land there. We don't know what will happen with. So a lot of them see within, you know, a quarter to half mile, even other cool things come when you spark something really nice. South Salt Lake, and they had a pretty rundown area, crime, and then they're in the middle of this. This is still going. A lot of these projects take a number of years to execute, and it's a lot of work to work with your partners and hash out all the details. But hopefully, you know, you create a framework and then you try to move forward. One of my favorites that I've visited is Troutdale, Oregon. There's a lot of elements to this that I feel, you know, I would love to see in our little downtown promenade. You can see that. Troutdale, they paid for the little pocket park. They bought all the old buildings on this street. They redid a lot of things. Now there's a lot of private investment. They've had to wait out a couple downturns. They started this a long, long time ago, but there's now parks and trails and all kinds of cute things. I love that little spot. And so there's more. Sandy City did a huge incentive in partnership with Hale Center Theater. Their investment has returned just 100-fold on the economic impact that they've seen benefits there. And then another community that I really love is Shaker Heights. Again, this is one that I feel is like kind of on the scale that would match more Lindon, some parts of it are more dense and bigger. We're not looking at that big, but that little central plaza and the little promenade street, and then you can close that for your farmers markets or little festival events. So just wanted to create some of the visuals so people understand kind of my vision and hopefully our vision together as a community, what we could create. We could do something really special here. We could get together and have, you know, public meetings to find out what the community wants and what amenities and things like that to really hash out. We have a partner here. They have an ask. We have to determine if that's an ask that we're willing to work with. It's not easy to get development partners on, you know, 30, 40 acres to just walk in the door, to be willing to take on a big master plan like this. So there we have it. All right.
Thank you.
I think that's well said, and I think you pointed to some very good projects. And almost everyone that you pointed to had a fairly substantial part of residential associated with it so that it could activate that space. We're here to collaborate with you as a council and answer any questions you might have. I think it's wonderful. Your residents ought to realize the transparency in you having this meeting, for all of them to come and ask questions and whatever, and we're happy to answer those at the end if there's time.
I appreciate all of your information, Mayor. Excuse me. I've had the opportunity to be in, law requires that we can't have more than 2 city council members in discussions with other individuals.
You do the
when-
short straw.
When we talk about city things, right? I can meet, 3 of us can have lunch together, but we cannot mention anything about Lindon, right? And I respect my fellow city council members for abiding by that. As I've been meeting with Castlewood and then meeting with individuals, I feel like I may have not done a very good job communicating the sentiments everyone has, right? There is a big elephant, and it says number of doors. And I think that Castlewood needs to appreciate how council feels, and not just through me or Jake. So I would love to invite council to give some thoughts and feedback. We have residents here. It's very, we don't want to get into a debate. We have really good residents. They're respectful, they're kind. But if possible, Mayor, I would love them,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 maybe, to just be able to share their feelings, because I want Castlewood to
Yeah, we're
understand
planning on it.
what we as a council are dealing with, so that we don't have this disconnect. I was able to meet with, I've been able to meet with a couple different developers. I was able to meet with somebody who was involved in Daybreak, Farmington Station, and I've gathered a lot of really good information. At this point, now, we do have an anchor, and your comment about state law, absolutely. But state law doesn't require us to have 375 doors. And I've heard what you said, Dwayne, you can just commercialize the whole thing, and I respect your feelings. But I know there's sentiments that aren't happy about the number of doors. And so I would love to have as polite a conversation so that we all understand each other. I'm not comfortable with 375. I'm going to go on record and say that. But I'd invite anyone else to share thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit, as I've been the other short straw drawer. I think we've expressed it to you, and it'll be good to hear it in their own words. We made this development. It is currently zoned for no residential. The amount of money we were looking to incentivize Costco with, which was a significant amount, would have required 127 units. To ask us 375. But I think another side of that coin is the way, without a master development agreement, we get a different development here. I think the mayor spoke well to that. And I think maybe after we have that discussion on residential, and you kind of understand where they're coming from, I think the council, I know Lincoln and I have heard it, I think the council needs to understand, and Van was getting close to it with his discussion, is that if we decide to not incentivize with the doors and the other incentives, and if you could just repeat this to them as you've discussed it with us, you're ready to move forward, and you'll move forward under the current zoning, which would be no residential, but certainly not something that looks as beautiful as that. And so I think that that's a key piece as well that I hope will get discussed, because we have decisions to make concerning the purchase of property that will be discussed in a closed session. That information, as well as what Lincoln said, I think are maybe 2 pieces of key information that need to be discussed in this meeting at some point. So I would go back to Lincoln's question, and I would say that we have discussed with them. They've heard from the beginning how we wanted this thing to develop without residential, and I've also told them I think. As a council member, I've probably been as opposed to residential high density as anyone, and yet I understand that we probably need to do, at this time, the way things have come, we probably have to do some residential to get what we want. Now, is it 375? What that number is really up for debate. But I think they have at least heard the genesis, the money that was put in to build this road, the Ivory discussions, Ivory telling us, just put these units in and all the commercial will come. And here we are, 10 years past Ivory, and still there has been zero development commercially. And so I think they understand what we want is commercial development. I think they understand that, but
But it could be commercial that's just jobs or office, not
yeah,
anything
and
that generates
I
sales
think
tax.
retail is what we want. We want to continue to tell our citizens, we haven't raised your property taxes in 20 years. That's a cool thing. Not a lot of cities can say that. And that is because of decisions made by councils, conservative, financially. It's a cool thing, and we want to continue to be able to do that. Our sales tax base is a big piece of that puzzle. But I agree with what Lincoln said. I think that has become very much the elephant in the room is doors and where we end up there. So would love to
Appreciate
hear
it.
opinions.
Can I just show one thing to the public really quick? Haley, you have a pointer. I don't have a pointer. So the project over here, just to orient everybody, on the far right, that segment right there is along the railroad tracks. So one of the things that I've been working really hard on is to make sure that Lindon doesn't get passed by when tracks comes to the valley eventually in the future. So the state has plans, long-term vision, to have the tracks line come down into Utah County there. We have Front Runner. We get skipped for Front Runner. You have to go clear down to Vineyard or clear up to American Fork. We don't want to get skipped again. But the state also makes requirements that if you want a mass transit stop, you are also required to have apartments, high density, because they want those to be transit-oriented development in those spots where people use less vehicles. They live right there, they can hop on the transit. So that corner over there, that makes a lot of sense to do density there, absolutely, because if we want a future track station, that's like I'm saying, there's this push and pull of the state kind of breathing down our necks and making requirements, or if we want certain things, we have to play ball. So just wanted to kind of clear that as one of the.
Can I have one clarification? I also checked this week. So before, we had Costco really excited, and so we had determined the number of doors required given the incentives we were going to make. Even though we don't have someone slated for that, we can still move forward because this is an RDA development area that we want to grow. We can still move forward with the number of doors, even though we're not giving it to anybody, right? And then when that anchor comes in, say, but this RDA has that number of doors so that we can give you these incentives, and we don't have to then give more doors up for those incentives. So whatever we decide, we should be able to kind of target what we did with.
Have a placeholder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then that will be able to continue forward. I have no idea if, is Brian over there? I have no idea if Utah State changes their laws more, if they can come back and change that even more. I hope not, but at least we think we can do that. It seems that we can.
Jake, do you want to restate your question to the council? I apologize.
I
for
want to
any
restate
interruption.
Lincoln's question. Is there anything that the rest of the council would like to help our developer friends understand from a housing standpoint,
Certainly the residential doors has pushed against us really hard right from the beginning. I don't think that's any secret. To the mayor's comment on the transit-oriented development, there's things we do maybe in that right-hand corner. But just to repeat everything I've said, I'm very uncomfortable with the amount of residential over in this other area. And maybe I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, but it's our way or the highway. Is that accurate?
That's not accurate.
I know you don't want to say that, but it feels like you're
Well,
saying
we have to make a decision, Councilman.
I understand that.
We've got a closing date coming up at the end of the year.
I understand
If we
that.
don't have a partner, we have to decide to go our own way. Again, we want to collaborate, we want to be partners, but if it's your way or the highway, that decision's been made for us. And that's the way we'll have to proceed. I don't know how else to put it.
And I would say, from what you're saying, you're putting us in the exact same position.
Yeah, we are a little bit to each other, but we've got a decision to make. We have to close on 40 acres of property, which is a substantial amount of cash. And we were willing to sell you your portion of that at today's bulk rate, which I don't think you could buy another piece of property here for that. I don't want to get into that,
Sure.
but
But as long as we approve the 300 and whatever, 75 doors.
we've got to have a development that makes sense for us. Otherwise, we just go forward with the way it's zoned.
And the parameters that we're discussing today haven't changed. The agreements have been drafted this way since we originally started discussing it. I know that now there isn't Costco, but we haven't changed what we've been asking for. Now,
I'm going to maybe interrupt you there. When you
Okay.
say agreement, there is no agreement.
right, the draft agreement.
There's a reason why Lincoln was pointing out that there's only 1 or 2 council members there.
Correct.
Because they cannot make
Sure, we
an
understand
agreement.
Right.
I mean,
right.
so I just want to make sure everybody understands. That's the
Thank you.
reason why there's those. If there's
Yes.
3, they could say, hey, yeah, we're doing it. And discussions occur, not in the public view.
I like being here right now in the public view and having this discussion.
There we go. That's why I asked those things. I'm going to have a hard time with the number of doors. And the caveat and the conditions that you are forced to put on it, if I can use that term.
That's probably inaccurate. I mean, we've got to do something, and we've got to know where other parties who are potential participants in the transaction are. And if you're not there under those circumstances, then we'll have to go forward on our own.
There's a lot of puzzle pieces here at play. It's not just the doors. It's like if A, then B. If A and B, then C. If not A, but B, you could have C and D. There's a lot of things at play here, and I don't want the conversation to become adversarial because I think we have a shared goal and a shared vision. You want the best and highest tenants. You want a project, I trust in you that you've said you want to do something of quality and something that's a marquee in your portfolio. I think we can still get there. I've heard in other conversations, maybe you want the council to woodshed a number, okay? You don't want to give the number out first, fine, what that is. Maybe this council needs to woodshed what that number is, instead of kind of playing chicken, who's going to say it first. So maybe that's something we need to, yeah, we know your number.
You've had it for a year, and I don't know how else to say it other than that. I know Van's uncomfortable with it, and maybe the entire council's uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it work for us.
Okay, there's some things at play, like you mentioned, of amenities or, incentives or land price or, who comes, how we get the anchor together. There's a lot of things I think we could move different levers potentially.
But what you're describing, Mayor, is a protracted discussion, and I've got a closing coming up the end of the year, and here we are in July. And if all of those pieces need to move and come into place, and they're not in place by September, October, my hands are tied.
All right.
That's fair.
It is very much fair. I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. So if you can come to some conclusion among you, and maybe it's not in this meeting, maybe it has to be in another meeting when you talk about real estate and other things, that you can come to us with and say, will this fly? And we can tell you yes or no, and then we're in that position. Because again, we want to be collaborative, but it's got to work for us, because we're the ones putting a substantial amount of money into this.
I think Cole's ready to
I
go.
was like, thank you. I'm one of the council members that've been to none of the meetings. So
You might have been spared a lot
I
of
know,
it.
so I've seen your website, I've seen the PDF. So I think it's always nice to put a face, to things, so thank you. I think when there was the ask of what questions there were, I didn't know immediately what questions. I know I'd received a lot of communication from residents, and I think some of the questions have been asked about those things. I do think from a developer's perspective, there's some difficulties, partnering with us, like the plazas and all these things are extras that normally you wouldn't consider.
I don't like sausage making.
Yeah,
It's
you just-
difficult to watch.
Right, absolutely. So I appreciate, the willingness to chat. One thing that I've, to the mayor's point about numbers and thresholds and cutoffs and how many doors, how much incentive, how many, all of those things, like where are my lines? I've been trying to think about what criteria I would use to put together a totally new package if I was beginning anew. And I was looking at capacity of infrastructure. We've already discussed how we'll have to do some infrastructure updates to even tolerate, the building of this, because we don't have the infrastructure to do it. I look at law, and that's already been discussed with what the state has determined would be the number of doors. And precedent, looking at what we've done in other places in the city, in the collective wisdom. And so I've been looking at those different factors. But tonight, I just wasn't sure if the purpose of tonight was you saying, this is what it is, or if there is space to negotiate or to tinker or move. I know that there's a pressing timeline, so there need to be respect to that. And I understand if the answer is, this is really what we've got. Like, this is where we're at. I just didn't know if there were other places that you could envision, not asking you for specific numbers or thresholds, but do you view a way forward that isn't what you've proposed?
We haven't really given thought to that. Just to put a little history to it, recognizing that Lincoln and Jake did the best they could to represent
Yeah, sure.
themselves and you at the meetings. We entered into a discussion in which the mayor and I think both council members were present, came up here and had a discussion with others and came back and said, we think we can do this project right here. That's what we walked out of the room, and that's what those development agreements that Adam and your city attorney have been going through based on.
Sure.
Now, if it was wrong, we'll allow room for that, but that's where we were headed.
Sure.
And then I think rightfully so, when Costco said we're out of here, it caused pause for all of you, and I understand that. There's no hard feelings, nothing's taken personal.
Of course.
It is what it is. You've got a city to run, and you've got decisions to make, and we respect that, without a doubt.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. It was crafted around a specific point in time.
That's how we got there.
Sure.
Was when we had that meeting downstairs, and then they came up, and we were nervously waiting downstairs in that planning room. And when they came back and said, we think we can do this deal. Yeah. That's what we walked away with.
Sure.
Now, perhaps they didn't reflect it properly. That's not on them. That's not on you. It's what we took away and presented to the city.
Yeah, sure. One thing that is part of my head pretzel in this is due to sort of the unprecedented nature of it. And so it's just taking me a moment to say, when do you do something totally different? I think in the last 15 years, the incentives that we've doled out for businesses were like a known business that we could project sales tax from, that we knew going in. So we have unknown businesses for lots of reasons you couldn't disclose it. So we have unknown businesses. So this is new territory to incentivize placeholders instead of known quantity. So that's been tricky. With residential, even with that Anderson Farm area, it's been the flip-flop where the developers have gifted the city, in addition to allowing the generous use of your plaza, they've bequeathed entire parks and built lift stations, and so that's a little bit different as well. So there's just enough differences that I'm like, oh golly, how do you, what makes a moment in time, it makes sense to change all of that? And so it's been taking a little of me thinking about and combining it with what the residents have been saying. There isn't a good rubric to determine if this is a wise move. We've also had two parts of land that were big box size that we had to change into partial residential, partial commercial, because they were never developed. And now we're in the space of considering buying another one that was turned down by one of the most successful retailers out there. And so it's just given me a moment to pause. And so for me, I'm willing to engage in those mental exercises, but out of respect for your time and probably ours, if you really think, given what you have, if that's what it is, that will help me know what kind of feedback to offer you. If there is a place to sit down and kind of talk about some levers, I've had a lot of people just, not just numbers, but housing type, has come up. And I'm willing to think about all of that, but I just didn't know if there was appetite for it, if that makes any sense.
Well, I really appreciate where you're coming from. I appreciate where the entire council is coming from, but I can't, based on where we left that room downstairs and the development
Yeah.
agreements and so forth that were circulated, that were never signed by anybody.
Sure.
We knew we were headed down that road.
Yeah.
I think we'd have all been happy. Maybe you wouldn't have been quite so happy to get ahead Costco. And we would have gone forward. I think it caused you all pause, rightfully so, but I think there is something else out there that can be brought to the forefront. And we'd like to be a participant in
Sure.
that in some way.
That makes sense. So it is as it is. The agreement is as it is.
But one other thing, Haley, before you,
Yeah.
You say you're banking on unknown retailers.
Yeah.
The only incentive we ask for is based on what we produce out of that project.
Yeah,
So we are
post-performance.
incented as highly as you are
Right.
to make sure that those are
Totally.
producers of sales tax in a volume sort of.
Right, because you
And that's a
wouldn't,
big deal.
you wouldn't get anything if it wasn't totally. Yeah, it's a
And
good metric.
we've got to give Adam credit for that. He came back and said, you're not tagging on Costco's coattails or anybody else that came before you.
Yeah, right, you gotta
Generate
do your own.
And
Yeah.
we're okay with that.
And just so for the general public, when incentive, we don't give anything up front. It's you bring some cool retailers who generate sales tax. We share the sales tax after it's created. There's a sharing for a finite period of time and a finite amount. And if you don't bring it, you don't get an incentive. It's, you have to bring,
Your own way.
produce it.
Yeah. And I do think like the notion of housing, yes, no, any at all, I do think there is a space for some housing. So I'm not one of those, it's just like a no, no, no. But I have fielded a lot of concern about type and quantity. But anyway, so thank you. Thank you for that feedback. It makes a lot of sense in that moment in time. That's what you rallied around. And it's so new for us to have this buck every trend that we've had, that I think it's been disorienting in a good way, but disorienting to know how to proceed in the most prudent way. But so I'm hearing you.
Sure.
So
And
thank
we
you.
appreciate where you're coming from.
Yeah, thanks.
We did do an analysis of sales tax and sales volume based off the concept plan, and
Yeah.
and that's something that we can share.
If that's
The
when they
city has
forwarded
it.
it to us, I
city
read
has
through
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was we commissioned it by
Rob Sand.
Rob Sand.
Yeah, he worked
Um,
for
Who's also an
LRB.
And he's
economic
wonderful.
consultant to you otherwise.
Yeah, he's worked through LRB.
And he
with us.
uses really standard assumptions on the retailers, restaurants, and all of that, and has communicated with Adam and the rest of
Yeah.
staff on those numbers, and so that could be a good resource.
Yeah,
So-
I looked closely at that, thank
Oh,
you.
you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. No, thank you. No, you've put in a lot of effort into it, for sure. So, that was my piece that I was saying.
Thank you, Cole.
Very frustrating for me. I can only imagine how it is for you too.
Because you've been sitting here quiet and you want to
I
talk?
have not been quiet.
Not been quiet.
Oh, my goodness. Mostly because we talk about numbers of doors, and all I end up hearing, and no knock, just is I'm not comfortable with this number. But we don't seem to be able to get down to what we are comfortable with.
Ready.
Okay.
What did you say, Lincoln?
I said, I'm ready.
I would hate to lose this opportunity. I think about, okay, let's say we do nothing, we say no on housing. What we get is what we get. And I appreciate the mayor's comments about that. Just like, at least have some control over what comes in. And I understand that the housing component here is what activates the space and brings in people to these areas. I think it's on us as a council. We've got to be respectful here of time, and I don't feel the threat here. It's kind of like this is the way it is. There are timelines, there are deadlines, there are those things, and we can wonder if they're real or not, but that's neither here nor there. We owe it, I think, to us as a council, to the city, our residents, and to these folks here who've come to just say, where are we comfortable? This was going to be developed one way or the other, and I appreciate the vision that the mayor's had. I've been, I think, lockstep in with that, with what we're trying to do here, not with all the elements necessarily, but I would like to see what we can get done in this, and that's where I'm at.
suggestion. Maybe without all the pressure of everybody sitting in front of you, maybe you need a little session to talk about this among
That's what we
yourselves.
have on the agenda.
I don't think we come up with that tonight.
That's what I'm, I feel your frustration, but I don't want you to feel forced into making a
Calling
deal
something
here.
out.
Because
No.
we're not here to make a,
No,
we
no.
made, we thought we made a deal.
All I'm trying to do is say, we need
ready
to
respond
move down
that,
the road a
whatever
little
that
bit,
is.
yeah.
Sure.
So, council, do you have any other questions? We have a lot of people in the room.
The only request is if we're opening this space to residents, I've loved hearing, I've had people phone call and email me, which has been really helpful. A lot of thoughts going into that. If you're speaking a kind of a new wrinkle, I would love for you to speak to that you haven't been presented with is an either or. Because I think a lot of emails have come in thinking something else will come in. And that's still a possibility. But I would love for you, if you were in this seat and had to say yes or no, I'd love to hear your perspective of, do you let it go? You'd rather let it go and see what comes in, or go with this? Because that's probably the bigger question that we have. It sounds like that's the deal, with maybe modification somewhere if it makes sense, but really this is kind of that. And so that would, if the public would speak to that, that'd be really helpful for me.
We're pretty
to know.
close.
Yeah, be really helpful.
All right.
I'm sorry. We have not given you an answer from our side, right? It's, I think Cole expressed it really well. I think Steve expressed it really well. Excuse me. As I met with these other developers, city leaders, and asking their opinion on things, right? One of the potentials is for, right, we're talking about 40 acres, but if we buy 10 acres as a city, we're talking 30 acres, we're not talking 40 acres, right? That puts us in a risky situation, or can, right? Equal to you, we're all hoping they'll come if we build it, right? And we've run some preliminary numbers, and I took those to other consultants for other cities in ULCT, and I said, this is our number. This is where we'd be. This would be our general fund balance. How much of a risk is this? And he said, you'll be okay. You'll be fine. Barring some catastrophic event like COVID coming throughout the world or something, I don't know, right? So I feel comfortable discussing purchasing that as a city, participating in the investment. As we discussed further, the individual really complimented the gathering place, commented, yes, this is a Lindon gathering place, but this is super valuable to the development. If you can build that gathering place first, you're gonna have people flocking. You're gonna have waiting lists long before you can get the residential built. Other comments talking about we need commercial, we don't want to build residential first, so we need to get those orders in there good. But you need a number, 200. The state requires us to go 127, and you might hate me with 200, but I would like to start at 200 and go from there and see what would have to change to do 200 doors.
I think we've had, council, you feel like you've had your say, and Castlewood. What I would like to do is, like I said, there's no action being taken tonight at all. There's nothing before us to vote up or down on this. But we do have to make a decision with a proposal that's been presented here, and hopefully respecting the applicant's time within a couple weeks, or if we're going to go forward working collaboratively or not. I will open it up to some public comment or questions, but just a couple ground rules. Be concise, and we'll kind of keep it to about 2-3 minutes if you can. And then if someone has already made a statement or touched on a subject, let's just not repeat those. So let's just keep it kind of brief and respectful as well. So I'd like to invite you to take your seats, and then we have the residents come forward. And as you come to the table, we ask that you state your name and sign in on the clipboard there, so we can have it, we have to have it entered for the public record. So appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Hilda Panhorst. I live in Anderson Farms. Just a couple questions. How many doors are on that corner lot where those apartments?
On the right,
Uh-huh.
168,
And then the other, what, 150?
170.
170 on the other. I think it's a beautiful plan. I've lived in communities that have built up and in California, in New York, in Miami, and now in Utah. And I think it's a lovely plan, and I think 300 doors would be a good number. I think 200, they wouldn't be able to survive with 200. That's just my comment.
All right, thank you.
Very, very much.
First off, thank you for opening it to public comment.
The question is, can you write your name and talk at the same time?
Right when you're done.
I will try.
If you're planning on coming up, you could come and start writing.
After, once the next speaker steps in.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you again for opening up to public comment. So I'm a homeowner here in Anderson Farms, and it's a very hot topic in the neighborhood, as I'm sure you can assume. And I think the majority of everyone who's here tonight is a resident in the neighborhood. One of the hottest topics in the neighborhood is the walking path. And I know I've had some conversations with each of you. Thank you for your responses. And thank you for Castlewood for shedding a little more light on it. If I could, it sounds like it is, the purpose of it is keeping residents in mind, and I appreciate that. The general consensus I've heard after speaking with the majority of the neighborhood is we don't want it. And if it's appropriate, maybe the residents here can weigh in if they, by a show of hands, if they feel the same way. But I think from what I've heard, it's a vast majority of it being a no.
All right,
Would the room agree?
all right. Thank you.
Thank you for that vote.
Yep, very good, thank you.
I just want to clarify, and from what I've heard, the reason why is because you don't want people who live in the apartments to park on the street and then walk through the path. Is that
Correct.
right?
The apartments, and then whatever city events happen there. We would love the idea of seeing 5Ks and things like that, that's awesome. But we also wouldn't want that parking. Our neighborhood, the roads are so narrow. And we do occasionally park on the road we're not supposed to, but we have guests, we have landscapers. When both sides of the roads get parked up, or even one, it is a tight squeeze. And residents are concerned about their children.
And that pathway is, the thought behind it was for you to be able to go in and not have to take your car and go find parking, to drive around a couple blocks. So I think Haley had Castlewood had ideas about how they would control their own.
Access code was kind of an
Yeah.
interesting idea.
So
concept.
I would love for you to keep an open mind that, like, if the apartments are kind of shifted and they're not right there by the path, and maybe there's controls or there's oversight in some way, think about your enjoyment of a space and being able to go there and what that would mean to now you have to go drive around.
Absolutely. We're open-minded. I feel like we are a pretty open-minded group. I've had the pleasure of also getting to know the Andersons, and as much as we love looking at their farm, I think we all understand it's going to get developed, right? We're reasonable in those lines, and if their intention is to sell, I mean, that's their land, that's their right. We respect that. So we're reasonable, we're open-minded. Just hope we can continue that conversation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you so
thank you.
much.
My name is Paul Gehring. I'm also a homeowner, but I live a little further south. So I might have a little different take than some of the neighbors that live right there along. Sorry, Brody. I feel like, my one question is the apartment buildings, how tall will those be?
We're still working on that. There are 3 and 4 stories.
Okay,
Primarily 4 stories is what it is.
okay. That was really my only question. I don't want the walking path either. I mean, I can walk out and around the street and get in there just as easy, I would assume, and wouldn't have to take a car. So I would rather have that closed off and not have access for people walking through our, that sounds mean.
It doesn't.
You're
good. You're good.
And I think when you brought up, or somebody brought up putting a gate code on it, we had that discussion in our little cul-de-sac about gating it off with a gate code, and the city said no, because it put too much responsibility on what if someone left it open, what if the, anyways, I would just rather have it closed off, but I love it. I think it's fantastic. I like the city taking some ownership, because if you don't, then it's gonna be developed in some other way and you have no control over it. So I'm all for it. Sorry, Brody.
One of the things that we're trying to be very intentional about is, according to standard commercial code, buildings can go up to the same height as the multifamily, and they could be positioned closer to your backyards. In this development agreement, as you can see, there's 2 parking stall distances already that are setting the buildings back. If they just come in general commercial, a general commercial doesn't even have to ask for our permission. The setback is set at our, right now, how many feet is this right now? We would make sure there's a bigger distance.
95 feet.
95 feet minimum distance, where I think in our general commercial code, someone today could just walk in and we don't have a say, because they would only have to do a setback of, is it 30 feet? And they could have the same height?
40, but
34, it could be 40. Sorry, our planning director's out of town right now, and he would have that off the top of his head. So just keep that in mind. Those buildings could be just as big if there are other commercial buildings that fit the code, what's allowed in there, and they close that distance about halfway, potentially. So pushing them back is one of the controls that we're trying to be intentional here if we work with this applicant, so. All right.
So that was one of my questions. I'm Brody Davis. I live on Watson Lane, so I back the farm. So you're saying it's about 90 some odd feet to the apartments and the commercial? Is that what you said?
I think the applicant said 95.
Okay. Because it's about 500 feet from the back of my fence to 700 North. So if you look at all that, it looks great right there, but your apartments it seems like they're going to be very small, like lengthwise, but they're going to be super tall. My concern is the walking path that Justin already talked about. We have about 40 kids on just our street that are probably under the age of 8 to 10. So there's a lot of kids. So we don't need any more cars or even a route for a kid to walk off or somebody to come in. So that's my biggest thing. But I'm just wondering, with having the apartments right there in the middle, is that going to deter people coming in? Where are they going to park? I just wonder if we need to try to push the high density out towards, like I like the one over by the railroad tracks, that one's over there, to put the apartments maybe on the edges on the other side and maybe have townhomes, because all that traffic going into the apartments, they're going to be driving past all the townhomes. If you put the townhomes in the middle, I feel like it would be more cozy, cottagey, if you're making that the downtown area. You don't want like a big old building and the parking too, so.
You just brought up a point that I meant to make, or the question to ask, that very same thing, so thank you for.
Yeah.
And I don't have the pointer, but I think that first building is
Yeah, I got you.
95
I got you
feet.
right here.
The other one, if I remember, went to the left of it, to the left building.
This
That
one
one
over
would be
here.
like 120, I think. Don't hold me to this, because like I said, our planning director's not here, but you can see that one's set back even further.
Yeah.
So,
Because I went over to the new development, the last phase, and they have those condo townhomes that are like 3 stories high. And you walk, 50, 100 feet away from those, and just imagine walking out of your backyard and just seeing that towering over you. And, I jumped the gun and I planted trees because I know that there's going to be development back there, so I'm getting a head start on that. But just 3 stories, 4 stories, definitely, that is way too tall. And, you have Everlight down at the other end, and I think they're a 3 or 4 story building, so why not try to keep the high rises next to the other high rises, and then let's concentrate on the downtown area and have it all small, make it open, not feel like you're towering over with something else, I feel like the taller buildings need to be out on the outside,
okay,
so,
thank you.
yeah.
Don't forget to sign the paper.
All right, I'm Christy Doan. I live in the neighborhood that's been there for a long time. So I've lived in that neighborhood for 16 years, and my yard backs up to this property. And I just want to first thank the council and everything that you guys have done. I love the idea of this community space and the way it's been put together with a beautiful gathering place and the residential. I think that is amazing. But I do want to go on record that the number of doors really is a concern for traffic and but also the transient nature that it creates. I don't feel like having that many apartment doors is going to create a welcoming group. When you live in an apartment, you don't care about the community as much. You don't work to build that feeling. And so that is a concern. I understand that there is give and take, but I'm hoping that that number can go down. I would also agree, I'd prefer 3-story over 4. But thank you for everything that you guys have done.
My name is Jeremy Jensen. I'm a homeowner on Watson Lane as well. I'd like to echo Brody's sentiment. Not only is the 4-story a privacy issue, just looking into his yard, like, just doesn't seem like a great idea. If it is a give and take, maybe get rid of the apartments and do townhomes instead. They are just as tall, but if it has to be a give and take, I'd much rather see like a nice community. But if we have to give or take, that's kind of my opinion. I wanted to echo a no to that footpath, but just for security reasons. I don't want my kids having another access to anywhere they shouldn't have access to. Another concern that I wanted to raise is infrastructure. Adding more doors, just if anybody's tried to get onto I-15 through that Pleasant Grove exit at 8 in the morning or 5 in that evening, it's impossible. It's literally the hardest thing in the world, it feels like. So just wanted to add that.
We are working on another freeway access point. That's one of the things that I'm working hard on with the legislature right now and UDOT and everything. So something is designed, but we have to get funding from the state. So hopefully the PG interchange will not be your only option in the future. So.
Hello, Council. My name is Scott Thompson. You all know me. I'll say from the very beginning, I'm on the Planning Commission, and I've been on the Planning Commission long enough to where this first came to us, when this was just a fresh piece of dirt out there. And I believe at the time, it was very important for us to have a vision for that area. One of the things that really bothers me on the Planning Commission is our inability to say no sometimes. And what I mean by that is, without a plan like this in place, then we resort back to what's in place, which is commercial. So we're talking about traffic. Well, we could put up a whole bunch of commercial buildings there and have just as much traffic coming in and out of there every given day, but they're not our neighbors. They're not our residents. They're people who are just coming in to work. So I think it's important. It's really hard for us to just say, well, we're not going to do this, and we're going to see what comes down the road later, because we really don't know what's going to come down the road later. And I think it's really important to have the vision, the foresight to say, we don't want this to become just another Class A office building location run here along Lindon. I think we would have truly missed out on an opportunity to make our city something unique and special. I think something else that hasn't been, that's really important. I think, Mayor, I'm glad you mentioned the transportation. Not only are we looking at a Trax hub coming there, but UDOT wants to make that the main bus route coming out of there. So the accessibility to this location is going to be amazing. If you look at where Lindon sits, it sits in the dead center of the county. I mean, of the valley, it sits right in the middle. So we're positioned in an amazing place to be able to take advantage of future growth. I think if we take that step and go forward with something that it's gonna be a catalyst. That's why, when the city came and they initially talked about buying the back acre, the back portion, I support that. I supported that. I believe that was a wise move. It does bother me a little bit to hear Castlewood say, well, we're just gonna move on if you don't do anything, because unless I'm misunderstanding correctly, they could do something up front, sort of landlock what the city owns back there, which is not a good thing. We've made the appropriate investment back for a deeper portion, so I don't know the numbers, I'm not I'm not privy to the numbers, but I would support preventing that from occurring by possibly buying that front. I don't know what offers they've made to us in the way of price. They're indicating it's a good price. The economic engine, I just keep telling all my neighbors, this is amazing down there, because for us, for a city of our size, to have this type of an economic engine is incredible. And so just the fact that we're not gonna have to raise taxes, we're not gonna have to do that. So I think we need to have foresight to not have to do that. And we're proud of that we don't do that. The only way that's gonna happen is by adding more tax revenue to the city. And so that's really important. It was really disheartening when Costco left. I don't think we moved fast enough. Maybe or maybe not. You know, we sort of sat on it. We went back and forth, and maybe that gave them time to things changed. So I think we need to make a difference. As far as density, when this first came to us last time, I didn't see this as when they came to us last time. Of course, I'm not on the council. I was in the room here. I was more, yes, we want to move forward on something similar to this. I didn't think it was an exact development agreement. I too was concerned about proximity to the park. So that 4 stories just sounds, that's not a little bit of country, but 3 stories, maybe that's where we lose our density. Knock off a couple stories, move them away from the park. Those kind of things makes it feel better for me. I really, I believe in the mayor's vision for this area, and I will fight for it. But that's, let me see if I think I covered everything I wanted to say. So with that, thank you so much. I look forward to this. If you move it forward to coming to the Planning Commission, we too will put a lot of foresight and a lot of thought into it as well to get to before we send it back to you. So thank you so much.
Thanks for your service.
Hello, Barbara Schifano. I'm a resident in Anderson Farms. Couple questions for you. Are there low-income housing that's planned for this area?
No, the state requirement is moderate income housing, so not low income.
And what's the average rent of a moderate rent?
People ask right there.
I can't speak to a moderate rent, but the rents in general in here, which most of them will be market rate, are probably somewhere between $1,200 and $1,800, $1,500 a month.
Okay, and what would the high end be?
Probably $1,500 to $1,800 for a 3-bedroom.
2,100.
Yeah,
Russell
2,100.
just pulled it up.
How many 3 bedrooms do you anticipate?
1, 2, and 3s.
How many 3 bedrooms do you
Don't know, we
anticipate?
haven't done the unit mix.
Okay. I would just ask the council to consider that you put a really high-end neighborhood in Anderson Farms, and I'd like you to keep that in consideration as you're building. We have other questions, like the criteria that the council's going to use when they're bringing in retail. We want to make sure there's no check cashing organizations that are coming in. So we'd love to see your criteria. We want you to really think thoroughly about the neighborhood that you put in. It's high-end, $650 to $950 in terms of house prices. And so what does that mean for a PUM or whatever you're calling it? That's really important to us. A bone of contention that you really need to address is that access point. We were here 2 years ago. You denied us on a gate with an access point, and you gave us a number of reasons why. Those reasons still apply. We didn't move into that neighborhood so that we could have traffic patterns. We moved into that neighborhood so that we could have privacy and security for our families. So I'm imploring you to please address that, because it will be a bone of contention for our neighborhood. One of the gentlemen mentioned we have 40 kids on that street, and we've got about 6 families that are pregnant. We don't need an access point. I know you think we do, but we don't. We want a closed-off, safe, and secure neighborhood.
Thank you.
Loud and clear. Appreciate it.
Hey, so my name's Jenny Lawrence, and I live in the Fieldstone Homes area. It'll be right behind the townhomes. Main concern, no walkway. We don't need a walkway. We're capable of walking around or driving our car if we wanted. We drive our car over to Airborne because we're too lazy to walk. So I will tell you, I will not go to that town center though. I will not go there because of the big, huge buildings right next door to it. It is not a friendly area to be if it looks like that. So in the pictures that you guys showed, everything looks amazing, but the buildings aren't in the pictures as they're just see-through ghost things. So you can't tell what that's really going to look like without having those buildings built in those pictures. So I would not take my family to listen to a concert there sitting around 4-story apartment buildings where it's a very transient area. My daughter lives in Orem in a very nice apartment place. Very nice. It's supposed to be really nice and secure. What does she have? People smoking weed right across the hall from her. Can she do anything about it? No. So it's not going to stop people from bringing in a more transient neighborhood, and then our house prices are going to be really low. I would love to see more townhomes put in, maybe even along the whole back side instead of apartment buildings. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Austin, and I would like to have your question answered by the developers about what is happening when they're increasing the number of parking stalls, what is happening to the rest of the plan. And so I would like that question to be answered. The next thing I would like to know is why the developers didn't bring their current plan. If the plan has been rolling and they have had a plan since February, I would like to know why they didn't bring the current plan to the meeting today when this was the purpose of the plan. The purpose of the meeting was to address that. And then I would also like there to be a little bit more transparency from the council. When I hear things like we're going to be paying $528,000 to a community space that can be reserved by the city, by them, like who's managing all of this? And so I feel like there's just a lack of transparency. And I also would like to ask the council to be providing more easy information for the residents of this city. So my brother is a city councilman and in another city, and people have easy information to receive. So all of us are busy. All of us are here tonight because we care. But I think in business, you would never send out a 20-page information thing and expect all of us to read it. And so I feel like there could be infographics. I mean, this is 2025. We want easier information. It's not fair for the residents to have to come to a meeting where people are not prepared to share the current information, are not answering questions about where is this space coming. Now, I'm a data person, so when you say, okay, so we're gonna change it from 1.8 to 2, we're talking numbers. Why don't we ever talk in numbers? And so I feel like I would like to ask the council and the developers to be more transparent and actually provide actual data for the residents. So I would just like to thank my other people for all the things they've shared.
Thank you for your comment. All right. Well, this meeting, council, I'm going to bring this back to you then. We'll go ahead and close the public. We didn't really have an official public comment motion. It was just, this is more informal, obviously. So we welcome hearing from you and appreciate your time here tonight, and the different thoughts that you've shared with us and the developer as well.
It really helps us residents when you come. You're not being ignored. It helps me a lot. It helps every one of us to understand. And you've brought up a few circumstances and situations and solutions and challenges that we don't get the right questions answered. So we all appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
All right. Council, do you have any further questions or discussion that you would like to have with Castlewood at this point? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here tonight and coming forward, and for all of the work that has gone into to try to take a stab at something with us. And we've been in an information gathering kind of a position here, and now it's time for you guys to get some responses. And moving forward, some of these questions addressed potentially and different ways to create some good creative solutions potentially with you. So,
I hope it's been helpful for you guys to hear from everyone and not just us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
these things are always, working with a master planned area is not easy. There's a lot of complexities to it. And so we're trying to wrap our minds around it and going forward, whatever happens with this land, there will always be public, meetings that you're welcome to watch online. They're on, you can watch it live stream if you aren't able to come here in person. They are recorded and up on YouTube. There's agendas and things that are posted and, prior to meetings, so you know what's coming up. So hopefully those are different ways that the public can get information. We are all extremely accessible. We all give out our personal private cell phone numbers and emails. And so talk to any and all of us anytime. We are here to listen to you. So with that said, that would end our item number 2, which was just a presentation and discussion. Thank you for the great discussion. So we now are going to go on to item number 3, which is going to be a closed session to discuss potential purchase or sale of real property per Utah code. And this is a closed session, so thank you all. Have a great evening. And please continue. Yep, we'll go ahead and do a quick recess before we go into closed session.
Sure. You know like that. You taught me everything I know on conservation. Well, that's super. Thank you. Down there on Lake,
Something that's right down the street.
Brittany's so good at doing it. I'm like having to write notes to myself and write notes. I'm kind of just like.
Gibberish, go back and listen to the recording and try to figure out what that dude said.
Gum in your mouth.
That's exactly what it was.
Really, I think the biggest thing is not you guys, but them speaking clearly and just writing notes.
He's like, she's like, I can't take you anywhere. Yeah.
No, I'm talking to people over there and they're like, so where should we can't figure out? I don't know.
I lost him.
He's gone.
It was interesting, we went out with a guy who said,
Sydney. So nice to meet you.
That'll be the question. We're still recording. That's okay, because that's the question. I'm very comfortable with it. Did we turn it off and turn it on for the? No, it's still on. We have to go in. Yes. Well, let's get doing it. You know what you do with these? People either love it or they hate it and think it's disgusting. You put it in a cup, fill it full of milk.
Yeah?
Let it get a little soggy. And all of a sudden, in about
I thought we were, and then Cole just dodged out. He was.
good, I saw you call. Good drive, family. I never had a moment by myself to talk to.
No, it was just,
That was fun. I could have listened to that guy for another hour.
right?
Could've just kicked
I didn't know
back
how
up.
you felt. I could.
I
was just,
He's one of those guys that I'm like, hey, start a podcast, man, because I'm in. I'll listen.
I've listened to his trainings on ULCT. He's been on a few, not that they were spectacular, but he's well respected. He's very well respected, and he has some great experience and credentials to back that up. And he's pretty no nonsense guy.
I just appreciate people that are like, hey, I don't know everything and what I see, and I could be off on this, but this is from the developer side. I see this from this. I see this, and so I love that type of banter.
I loved his comment.
I worry how much he likes Adam. That's maybe the one.
Right?
He sure likes you, Dave. He's awesome, man. Had a lot of good things to say about you.
I liked his comment that said push back, but know why you're pushing back. Don't just push back to push back.
Yeah. City manager of Farmington, when Farmington Station went in, developer, city manager of South Jordan for a while.
Oh. And after daybreak, he said, I was done, adios. Wow. And did private development.
He was a city manager, learned all the tricks of it, and then became a developer, made a bunch of money, and then went back. I'm like, I hope we don't ever lose Adam to developers.
Are you gonna go out there and make the big money?
They're tough.
Well, you have to remember, he then came back. And the market scared him.
It was.
Glad they came, and glad Wayne was able to see
I
them.
loved our residents. They're so respectful. They're open-minded. You always comment on how good of people we have.
Cole.
Aren't you responsible?
Salmon. I was gonna do blue. You had salmon.
For like on the ends? I'll have some.
Did you get my thing on that?
What?
Would you put that in a cup?
I needed a pocket.
Oh, 100%.
tonight,
Milk is the way.
Oh, you just drink it. So it's happening.
so. Motion here?
Yes, we do. So we're on item number 3, still of the regular council meeting. We will reconvene here after our little short recess. I would entertain a motion for item number 3 on the agenda.
I make a motion to leave the existing session and enter into a closed session to discuss the potential sale of real property per Utah code.
Second.
And by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Stewart. All in favor, give the roll call with a name.
Steve Stewart, aye.
Lincoln Jacobs, aye.
Jake Hoyt, aye.
Carolyn Lundberg, aye.
Van Broderick, aye.